welcome back to Rockin Reality. Thank you so much for tuning in again today. Our special guest today is Kevin Jones, singer of the band Stepchild, and wow, Kevin has some great stories to tell. Thank you again, Kevin, for the great chat, and thank you also to Kevin's promoter Christina for setting up the interview. If you want to check out Kevin's music, all the links are in the description below, as well as our links to our social media. So don't forget to hit us up on Facebook or on Instagram and let us know what you thought about the interview. And follow us there, and also don't forget to subscribe to the channel so you won't miss any new interviews. But for now, enjoy the show and enjoy the interview. Have fun.
Do I look pretty enough? Should I go into hair and makeup, or am I all
right? You're all right. You don't need to wear makeup. You're all good.
Hey, well, thank you for having me.
You're very welcome. We say thank you for you coming on, for taking time to talk to us. It's really, really cool. We appreciate it. All right. So, Vince, do you want to start?
Yes, at first we always ask about the beginning. How did you get into music?
How did I get into playing music?
Yes, playing music and hear music. And
yeah, I got my first guitar when I was 12 years old, and I was in a band by the time I was 13 years old, and we did 8 Rolling Stone songs, and we wrote 3 songs. We had 11 songs. 8 Rolling Stone songs and 3 originals.
Having 3 originals at age 13 is pretty cool.
Yeah, we were already starting to write, and so I've been at this a long time, and I've recorded 11 albums and written 200 songs, and it's the love of my life. It's my everything, and I never went about it for money or for stardom. I just eat, breathe, and sleep, and just love music. It's just my everything. And so when I was just a baby, I loved the radio and I loved music, and I was immediately attracted to it. And in fact, when I was a real little kid, like 3 years old, when I was basically a baby, my parents' best friend's son had a guitar, acoustic guitar. And we would go to church on Sunday, and then after church on Sunday, we would go to our friends, the Baker's house. I lived in Anaheim, California, in Orange County. I'm still in Orange County, but I lived in Anaheim, California, a couple blocks away from Disneyland as a little kid. And so we would always go to the Baker's house and have a big breakfast after church. And so when we would arrive at the house, I would literally bolt out of the car. I didn't have to knock at the door. I went, right into their house, through the hallway to the back right bedroom, and underneath the bed, I would pull out the acoustic guitar. When I was like 3 or 4 years old, and it was too big for me to pick up, but I would open up the case and I would just sit there and strum the guitar when I was like 3 or 4. So like, I already knew I was a guitar player, like when I was born.
Yeah, sounds like it. It definitely sounds like you have always been into music. Well, that's really cool.
And then as far as the singing side of it, it was just natural to me. And I remember my parents always telling stories that like when I was like this little kid, we would be, they got me this little AM radio. It had Mickey Mouse on the front of it. I was like 5 years old, something like that. And you would turn Mickey's little face to dial the stations in. And they said I would be in my room, 5 years old, 6 years old, and I would just be singing with the radio. And when we would go like on family trips on vacation, I would be singing and they would be like looking at each other like, how can Kevin possibly know that many songs? And like song after song after song. We're talking Motown, we're talking Diana Ross and Supremes, Marvin Gaye, we're talking pop radio, blues radio, rock radio, Beatles, the whole spectrum of music. I would just sit there and sing along with the radio for my family when we were on road trips in the car. And it used to just totally amaze them how I could memorize all the words to the songs. And so it's just been in my blood and just who I am. Music is just like part of my whole DNA and my soul since I was born.
So who are your favorites at that age? And who are your favorites now?
Well, I have a broad spectrum of what I love and what I like. And so, you know, I'm in 4 bands right now, and most of them are on the metal side, but not the super hard metal, more of a straight metal type sound. And I get compared a lot vocally. And so it makes me laugh that the thing is that everybody's always saying Axl Rose, Axl Rose, Axl Rose. I've been hearing it my whole life. And, you know, most of the bands that I'm in, my influences are like Ronnie James, like mostly Black Sabbath and Rainbow. So like a lot of my favorite singers are like from Deep Purple and Rainbow. So I love Glenn Hughes, I love Ronnie James Dio, I love David Coverdale, Ian Gillan. So the whole Rainbow Black Sabbath thing was a huge deal for me. The Beatles were a huge influence on me. And so most of the band that I'm in and playing are more like a Guns N' Roses, Aerosmith, straightforward, Alice in Chains. So straightforward hard rock metal, as you want to say. But like when I get up in the morning and I have my coffee and I'm wiping the sleep out of my eyes, I put like Steely Dan on, I put the Beatles on, I put James Taylor on. So as far as like just chilling out and listening to music, I like a lot of stuff that's more a little on the mellow side as far as just starting my day. But then when I wake up and I plug my amp in and I start playing, at the end of the day, I'm a hard rocker.
I've noticed that almost every musician always mentions the Beatles. And I love that because the Beatles are my favorite band. So
I have right above me on this wall right now is this huge portrait of the Beatles, and they all signed it. It's a copy. It's not like they signed it for me, but it's a copy. And maybe before the interview is over, I'll grab my laptop and show you. But the Beatles are right next to me right now on the wall. And this is my recording studio. So I have this office, and right now, I've been so blessed by God. I live down in Laguna Beach, California, right on the coast, and I'm about 50 steps away from the beach. So if I turn this way right now, I'm looking at a gorgeous ocean view and the waves crashing on the beach. And then I have my recording studio right here. So if I sit right here and I start laying tracks, whether it's guitar or vocals, I can literally sit here and write and record, and my studio is all right here, and I can look at the ocean, and I can sing, and I can play, and I can create. And then I also have a side thing, a day job per se, and I'm able to do that from here from home as well. And so I'm about 40, 50 steps from the ocean.
Oh man, that's beautiful.
I mean, I got to brag about it because it just makes me just so happy. And when I wake up in the morning, you know, sometimes I've been going to bed earlier. I used to be a really late night person, but I've been going to bed earlier and getting up earlier. And so my point is that when the sun comes up over, there's like mountains and houses to my left and the ocean to the right. And so when my day starts and the sun comes up and the sun starts to hit the ocean, it's so beautiful. So every day I'm blessed with that. And then at night when the sunset hit, every single night, I just am excited to see what the sunset is going to look like. And I'll start taking pictures and putting them on Instagram and Facebook and you know, Twitter or whatever, right? And I'm just super, super happier than I've ever been in my life. And I went through well, I won't get into that, but I'm here, just me and my lonesome, for really kind of the first time in my life. I'm single. It's just me and my little studio apartment here on the beach, and I'm writing new music and recording new music, and I'm super happy.
I love it when people are really so happy that you can actually, like when you just talked, it was obvious how really grateful you are and how happy you are. And I love it when people tell us that, and when they're so happy that they just tell everyone. It's kind of Now I don't know the English word. Like it affects other people as well. Like everyone else immediately gets happier, has the smile as well when someone else is so happy. And I love this. So thank you for sharing this with us. So what I'd really love to know is that you send us a lot of stuff. So thanks for that, by the way. Not everybody sends us this much. This is really cool. And you also sent us this list of bands that considered you as a singer. And there's so many cool bands on there. And I just wondered, for example, with all these big bands, I've always wondered when they consider you for a singer, how does this work? Do you have to go to an audition, and do you sing for the actual band, or do you have to sing for the producers and managers, and then they decide who gets to sing for the band, or how does this work?
Could you say that last part of it one more time?
Yeah, just how does the whole auditioning process work with these bands when they need a new singer and have to decide who they choose?
Well, that's kind of an interesting question for me. And those that know me well, as you can probably tell, and we just met today, and thank you so much for having me. And by the way, before I forget this in this interview, I want to give a shout out to the lady, the woman, the friend and sister to me, Christina Avila, that introduced me to you guys and set this up. So thank you, Christina. You're the best. She's getting me all kinds of interviews. She's doing so much promotion for me. And so I'm going to try to make a super long story short. I'm the guy that almost got the gig, almost. And, you know, a lot of musicians that you meet in the world, they're like, yeah, I almost did this and I almost did that. And I know this guy, and, you know, and it's like kind of like name dropping. And I don't want to do that. So let me see if I can make a super long story as short as I can. Okay. I beat out 1,000 people in 1996, down to 6 guys to replace Rob Halford in Judas Priest, okay? When Vince Neil left, got fired, whatever, Motley Crue and John Corabi got the gig, I was one of the people. I could sit here and drop Slash and like Anthrax, and when there was a recycler ad all these years ago for Megadeth, I went and met with a guy named Dave Mustaine. I have no idea who he was. And he's like, you know, I might just sing and play myself. I've had all these people come, and I like your long hair. You seem pretty cool. This was a lot of years ago, right? I brought a cassette tape. And I ended up, Dave Mustaine wanted me to be the singer of Megadeth. And he's like, I got a record deal. I'm endorsed by BC Rich. And I ended up not taking the gig. So it's so hard to make this long story short. So I'll just cut it because I could go on and on about it. But I was up for Black Sabbath when Ronnie James Dio left. And so when you ask me the questions like how do the audition processes go, right? I had this thing many years ago where I was trying to make it in the music industry. My band Stepchild back in the early 90s had Geffen and Interscope and all these labels looking at us, and it didn't happen. And the band basically kind of broke up at that point. We ended up obviously getting back together years later. But what happened is I had a management company, and I had a meeting with them, and I said, you know, even though it would really kind of be a tough deal, and I'd probably go through some criticism if I got the gig, if I go and audition for a big band, that singer has quit or they've got fired or whatever, that would be a way that I would instantly launch into the music industry and I'd make it. And so it's more than me wanting to brag to you guys, oh, I almost did this, I almost did that, I almost sang with these guys. But the truth of the matter is there's like 15 major bands that looked at me. And whether I came in 100th place or 2nd place or whatever, I didn't end up getting the gig. But a lot of the biggest bands, Van Halen, even when Sammy Hagar left the first time and they went with Gary Cherone, they were looking at me. So across the spectrum from Sabbath to Motley Crue to Judas Priest, a lot of the biggest bands in the world looked at me, and I didn't get the gig. Okay, so back to your question. as far as auditioning, I don't really audition for anybody. They audition for me. Because like all these different bands that I'm in, they're like my bands. And so it's more like, and I haven't had a shortage. I haven't really been in a position where I had to have a cattle call or get a studio and have an open call audition, because I've been so blessed by God with all these great musicians through all the networking, all the shows. And I've always been like in 3 or 4 bands kind of my whole life, that I've always been out in, I lived in Hollywood, now I'm in Orange County. I lived in Hollywood for 20 years, and I was always at the Rainbow Bar and Grill, which is where all the rock stars hang out, you know. And I had this big rock and roll family, and all these bros, all these brothers of mine, and we were all in bands, and we were always doing shows with each other. And so there was a plethora of musicians. And so it was more narrowing down, like, I want that dude playing guitar with me. I want to sing for that guy. You know what I mean? So many years ago, I was out on the hunt for a lot of auditions. One of them, the last ones where I kind of just threw in the towel and decided to do my own thing, was when Scott Weiland left Velvet Revolver. They were looking for a singer, and I had recorded a couple songs, which is really cool. I've got a demo that I can't release or play for anybody. I can play it in my own headphones at home with me singing, with Slash playing guitar, and Velvet Revolver with me singing. And I signed a contract that you can't release anything to the public, you know, for anybody to play it, or social media. But right as they were maybe looking at me and looking at a bunch of other guys as well, so I definitely didn't have the gig, but I was trying to get it. And I love those guys, they're amazing. Slash got a solo deal, and that's when Slash did the solo album, and he had Chris Cornell, Miles Kennedy, which ended up being which is amazing, his main singer now in his solo thing. But I went for Slash's Snake Pit twice, didn't get the gig, went for Velvet Revolver, and then Slash did the record with Ozzy and Fergie and Miles Kennedy and Chris Cornell and a bunch of other singers, and did a badass solo album with a bunch of all-star singers on it. And so after that happened, I just decided, you know what, just, you know, put this thing, you know, put your own band together and do your own thing. Stepchild was about to reform, and the leader and main songwriter and guitar player, and pretty much my best friend in the world, or one of them, is a gentleman by the name of Scott Griffith. And Scott took a job offer in 2006 and moved to Rhode Island, and he went to see the Great White. We used to do a lot of shows. Stepchild played a lot of shows with Great White. And Scott went to the Station nightclub to see Great White, and that was the night where they did pyrotechnics and the place caught on fire, and like he lost his life in that fire. So my best friend lost his life in the Station nightclub fire, and I believe it was 2006. It was heartbreaking. And we put Stepchild back together after he went to heaven to raise money for his daughter Casey, and we put Stepchild back together to do some tribute and some memorial shows for Scott. And that's how Stepchild got back together. And then as we had done a couple of shows, we all looked at each other and were like, you know what? These songs that Scott wrote are so amazing, and we all dig playing with each other. These songs, certain songs like AC/DC, Zeppelin, Stones, Beatles, Black Sabbath, whatever, whether they were from the 70s, 80s, 90s, or the 60s, it doesn't matter. Good music holds the test of time. Stepchild songs kick ass, okay? I would never, ever get tired. I want to write new songs, and we're starting to. I'm about to actually, with a new lineup, record a new Stepchild album. But those songs in Stepchild are super dear to my heart. And I co-wrote a lot of them, at least the lyric side of it, not the music side of it, but the lyrics. And so Stepchild reformed 15 years ago. And since we reformed, we have been out playing shows all over California, especially Los Angeles and the Sunset Strip, and the major venues down here in Orange County. So the main thing, my main band is still Stepchild.
So you mentioned Black Sabbath as one of your main influences before. How was it to get to the audition for them? Or
So what happened is when Black Sabbath had done the amazing, one of the best albums ever recorded in music, Heaven and Hell album, and they had a falling out, they decided to audition singers. And down here in Orange County, there used to be a venue that turned into the Marquee Club, but at that point it was called Joshua's Parlor. And Toby, the general manager of the club, was friends with a guy named Bernie Rico. Bernie Rico is the creator of BC Rich Guitars, and he was buddies with him. And Bernie Rico was buddies with Tony Iommi. And they had a talk, and he's like, hey, do you know any singers like in Orange County, in down your way that could maybe audition for Sabbath? And they set me up an audition, and Ronnie James Dio was one of my biggest influences and one of my favorite singers. And the day before my audition, and I was practicing my ass off on like all these Black Sabbath songs, I had the whole Heaven and Hell record memorized, ready to sing on top of the old Black Sabbath songs with Ozzy. So I was ready to walk in and kick some serious ass to go for the audition. And the day before my audition, they signed a guy down here in California by the name of David Donato. David Donato got the gig, and they called me and they canceled the audition, and I never got to walk in and sing. A few weeks later, he walked into a recording session. I was told, and I don't know if it's true or not, but he had done some type of an interview over in Europe, and he said some things that the band was not fond of, and he walked into a rehearsal, I guess hammered, drunk. And I don't know if that's true, maybe it's a lie, but I was told that David Donato walked into a Sabbath rehearsal and had done an interview where he said some things the band didn't appreciate or that he shouldn't have talked about, and walked into the rehearsal hammered, and they fired him on the spot and sent him back to America. So it kind of sucked for me because I would have loved to have that gig.
That would definitely have been a cool gig.
Years later, after Ronnie James Dio went solo, I had a job here not too far from where I live in a city called Lake Forest. It was called El Toro then, but it's called Lake Forest. It's about 15 minutes north of me from the beach, and it was called Tower Records. Remember when there used to be record stores? Or maybe you guys are pretty young, but do you guys have record stores in Germany?
Yeah.
yes,
You don't have many anymore since the internet hit, but when I was younger, there were record stores, there was the Warehouse, there was Tower Records, there was Virgin Records, and I had a job at Tower Records. And my general manager and my boss there said, hey, do you know who Ronnie James Dio is? I said, he's one of my favorite singers. He says, well, he did a solo album, and they want to come to our store and have an autograph signing, and we're going to have a party for him and stuff. And after the autograph signing, we're going to close the doors and we're going to have a party with him. And I'm not going to say what year this was because it shows my age, but if you do the math of when Holy Diver came out, Ronnie Dio, you can do the math of the years, okay? I mean, I've already dated myself, so whatever. So that day, Ronnie James Dio, Vinny Appice, Vivian Campbell, and Jimmy Bain came down to our store, and there was hundreds and hundreds of people, if not thousands of people, packed the store, and they got to meet him and shake his hand and get his autograph and buy Holy Diver. And then we shut the store down and we had a party for him. And I was sitting in the back room with the girlfriend that I had at the time. And we had like beer and wine and soda, and we had a big sandwich, and we had chips and food and stuff, and we were just chilling out with Ronnie James Dio. I was like, I couldn't believe it. And I was a pretty young kid, And the girl that I was with at the time said, Ronnie, you should hear Kevin sing you. And he looks at me, he's like, what? She's like, you're his favorite singer. You should hear him sing. And like the people that I worked at the store, they had never came to one of my little shows. They knew I was a singer, but nobody had ever heard me. So Ronnie Dio sitting on a couch, he looks up to me and he goes, let's hear something, Kevin. And I'm like, nah, no thanks, thanks anyhow. And he goes, come on, man. And so everybody's like, come on, Kevin, come on, Kevin. So I stood up and I closed my eyes and I sang a cappella Stargazer by Rainbow. You ever heard it? Stargazer?
Yeah.
yes,
I stood up and I closed my eyes and I clench my fist, and those who know me, when I sing, I'm like with my right fist like this, and I belted it with everything I had. And Ronnie James Dio stood up and put his arm around me, and he goes, "You sing me better than me, man." And I started a friendship with Ronnie James Dio that day, and I was friends with Ronnie from that day to when he, God bless his soul, went to heaven. And so he had talked about, I did a solo album years ago called Hope Has Its Reasons, and I asked Ronnie if he would produce the album and help engineer the album and do some keyboards and help me do some of the things. I didn't ask him to sing on it. I asked him to produce it. And he's like, "Man, let me get back with you. Let me talk to Wendy. And let me catch you back. I'd love to do it. I just don't know if I would have time." And it ended up that he was too busy to do it. But God bless Ronnie James Dio. And so my childhood star and my hero ended up being my friend.
That's a great story, really, and I love the compliment that he gave you. I think that's a compliment everybody could just wish for, really.
I've been really blessed in my life to have either got to meet or jam with different musicians, and I have stories, I have story after story after story. There was an evening at the Rainbow where I used to hang out, and I lived in Hollywood. And one of the waitresses there that was my buddy, she said, "I know you love Ozzy. Do you want to meet him? He's here." Well, that was around 8 o'clock at night, and she introduced me to Ozzy. And something very similar, I ended up singing in front of him in the restaurant. He asked me to. God is my witness, I didn't say, "Hey, can I sing for you, bro?" That's not how it was, right? So we ended up partying and drinking, and they closed the club at 2 a.m. We left at like 6:30 the next morning, me and Ozzy. I got to sit there and drink and talk and tell stories and eat food with them from 8 o'clock at night till 6:30 in the morning.
That's a pretty long time.
My point is that of all these different Ozzy's, I grew up singing Ozzy and Ronnie, and I ended up getting to hang out with them and getting to be friends with them. And so how cool is that to be able to hang out and meet your heroes,
Yeah. But it's I've never been to the Rainbow, but it's the stories that people always tell that all the rock stars always hang out at the Rainbow.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I have to go there someday.
And the thing is that when you already have somebody that you love so much, you love their song, you love their voice, you love listening to their music, and then you meet them and they're sweethearts and they're kind people and they're humble and they're friendly and they embrace you and you end up being friends with them. Then when you get to listen to their music, they're like, not only is that my hero, that's my friend. And I'm so lucky to have that happen in my life, and the list is long, from Eddie Van Halen to Dio to Ozzy to a lot of people. Tony Iommi is a sweetheart. Geezer Butler's a sweetheart. A lot of these different people that I have been friends with through my career that necessarily I never really made it in the music industry, but a lot of my friends that did make it or were full-blown rock stars, I have friendships with to this day. And it's a really humbling thing to be able to listen to the music that you love and with some of them be friends with the people. It almost gives it a new type of heart and soul when you listen to it, When I was at the Rainbow one night, Jimmy Page from Led Zeppelin walked in and they sat him right behind me. And I went to reach over to shake his hand. He had a bodyguard and he kind of went, no. And Jimmy went, "That's cool." And I shook Jimmy Page's hand. And I said, "How you doing, Jimmy?" He's like, "Oh, I'm doing all right. How you doing?" Right? And I was just sitting there like, I just freaking met Jimmy Page from Led Zeppelin and shook his hand. So it's just such an amazing thing to be able to meet the one that we love, and it's more than just, some of the people I was starstruck by. Some people I was just looking forward to meet. Sometimes it was just a haphazard thing. I was at the right place at the right time. And living in Hollywood and LA and going at the Rainbow, a lot of times when it would close and everybody's drinking and all that, we would go to different studios and I got to jam late night jams from 3 o'clock in the morning till the sun came up with some of the biggest people in the industry, and just great musicians, whether they were rock stars or just great players. And so I had a lot of great times through the years of being able to go and play music with people that I looked up to and I respected. And I love that part of my life, you know. Super lucky to have that happen.
Yeah, definitely. I totally understand that, because my favorite guitarist is Ryan Roxy. He's Alice Cooper's guitarist, and I got to meet him a few years ago. And by now I know him pretty well, and it's just pretty cool to say I know my favorite guitarist, and I can just text him when I talk to him, when I want to talk to him, and that's pretty damn cool. So I know how you feel. That's it's just cool when you get to meet these people.
Yeah, it's like you're just kind of like, wow, did that really just happen? You know, am I like really friends with that hero of mine? You know, and so, you know, like I said, that when you meet somebody that you just already love their music, and then you love them as a person, as a friend, and you see that they're humble and they're kind and they're cool to their fans. Like, you want to talk about somebody that was nice to their fans. Ronnie James Dio, because I was friends with him all the years, he never forgot my name. And we would be like, I'd be hanging out with him wherever, you know, backstage at one of his concerts. And when people would walk up to Ronnie, he'd be like, hey, Shelly, hey, Kelly, hey, John, hey, I mean, he wouldn't see the person for 5 years. And he met him one time and he'd remember their name. His mind, his memory was like a steel trap. I used to look at Ronnie, I was like, how can you remember all these people's names? He goes, I don't know. I just, you know, I love my fans, and when I meet somebody, I try to remember them and remember their face, you know? And so I can't do that. I wish I could. I wish I had a memory like that where I could remember everybody's name, you know? But I love people like the guys in Iron Maiden. I got to meet with them, Bruce Dickinson and Nico, the drummer, and Steve Harris. All those guys in Iron Maiden are like the nicest people you could ever meet in the world. All the guys in the Scorpions, Klaus Meine, all those people, every single member of the Scorpions, nicest people you could ever meet. All the guys in Iron Maiden, nicest people you could ever meet. Geezer Butler, Ronnie James Dio, Tony Iommi, all those people are absolute sweethearts that don't take for granted their success. They work their ass off, you know, to do what they've done, toured all these years. And instead of being stuck up or like full of themselves, you meet them and they're like, hey, how you doing, man? And you're like, whoa. It just makes you appreciate their music even more, because it's like, not only do they kick ass at their art form, they're good people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Definitely. It's also, I think it would be weird if you met your hero and they wouldn't be nice to you. Like, I think it would feel weird afterwards to listen to the music and know, okay, that guy's an asshole.
I've had a couple of those, but I'm not going to drop those names. But there have been a couple of people where you're like, whoa, what a drag, you know? And the thing is that you also don't, like, I don't want to drop names of a negative experience either, because me being a musician and doing all the shows, sometimes you're not feeling well. Sometimes you just get off stage and you're covered in sweat, and somebody's like, yeah, I want to introduce you to my friend or whatever. And so I always try to remember to just be kind and you know, and be in the moment. So the thing is that we all have our ups and downs. Sometimes we're in a bad mood, we had a bad day, who knows what's going on. Maybe you're pissed off because your show went bad, or you're just having a bad day, right? And so the thing is that sometimes you meet people under circumstances where it just didn't click that day, you know, or they were busy, didn't really have time to meet you or talk to you. And so I leave that side of it out, where I don't say negative things about people, because I'm sure there's been times where people came up and met me, you know. And so I do always, that's the thing, seeing people like the names that I just dropped, the different musicians, it definitely showed me that, like, hey, you got to remember, when you meet people that love your music, whatever you have going on, like in your life, whatever it is, put it aside and look that person in the eye and shake their hand and say, hey, what's up? You know, nice to meet you. What was your name? So those before me, of like the people that I mentioned, definitely gave me the groundwork to remember that no matter where I'm at, whether it's the freaking grocery store or the beach or at a gig or off stage, to always treat people kind. Because if they look up to you and they love your music, and then they meet you and you're nice to them, they're like, wow, he's a good dude. He's a cool person. So I always try to be that way in my life.
I think it's cool that you do that. I also think it's nice that when musicians also when they take the time after a show and actually meet up with their fans and talk to them. And I know that it's not possible for people like Ozzy Osbourne to go outside after a show and be like, "Hey everyone!"
Yeah.
But for everyone else, I think it's nice when they come to the merch table and say, "Hey, do you want a photo or do you want an autograph?" I think that's cool when musicians do that.
Absolutely. And it's not like I have the big problem. It's not like I'm the big rock star or anything, you know. I'm just saying that when I do get the opportunity and I have somebody that likes my singing or likes my guitar playing or likes my music, it's humbling, you know, and I'm always genuinely humbled, you know, when people want to meet me. And so it was great when I was super young, just a teenager, to see people like Ronnie James Dio, how they treated people. And I was like, that's cool. That's how I want to be like that. If I ever get to where that guy is, that's how I'm going to treat my fans. Because this guy really loves the people that put him where he is, you know, and he appreciates it. And he treats each and every one of them with absolute respect and friendship. And that's one of the most, you know, on top of Ronnie James Dio being such an amazing, maybe the greatest rock singer ever. I mean, everybody has their own voice and their own art, and everybody's different. I love how different everyone is. But not only was Ronnie James Dio a great singer and a great writer and a great musician, he was a really great human being.
Yeah. Have there also been like fans of yours that you've met that you remember a lot that has really stayed on your mind because they like sometimes you know your fans tell you how you inspired them or stories that they connect to your songs. Like has something like that happened to you where you say, okay, I met that fan and he really stayed on my mind. I really remember that fan a lot.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think it's great that it works both ways, you know, so that it works for the fan when they meet a musician they like and it's great for them, but it also works the other way around. Like when a musician meets a fan and they tell the musician great stories, like, hey, that song of yours inspired me a lot, that it also works the other way around.
Yeah. What's the music scene, like the metal and the hard rock music scene where you are in Germany? Is it thriving? Do you guys, where you live, do you like go to, now that like the COVID thing has died down a little bit, are you going out and going to live shows again?
Yeah, definitely, yeah.
And is the music scene, you know, I know the German music scene is, you know, has been thriving for many years now. A lot of the German bands I absolutely love, you know, like Scorpions, you know, and Accept is from Germany, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
So I did a couple shows with Accept. Love that band, by the way. They're amazing. And so I was just wondering, you know, if you guys were, you know, going out and going to shows recently since COVID has died down a little bit. So you are going to shows?
Yeah, we are.
Yes. Yes, as far as possible as because of the COVID thing. We like to go to live shows as much as we can.
Yeah. Cool.
Yeah, we had really very strict rules for a long time, so we weren't really able to. But now it's been getting easier throughout the summer, so now we can go to a few shows again.
I see.
Will you come to Germany when it's easier again? That would be cool.
I hope that I will someday. A friend of mine, a guy that I work with, a bass player, he has worked with me in Stepchild. His name is Kurt Skorich. And then my guitar player, that was my lead guitar player in Stepchild years ago, his name is Alex Perez. And they were super tight friends with Doc McGee. And Doc McGee actually, I don't know if he still does, but he lived here in Laguna Beach, California, where I lived. And they were really tight with him. So when the Scorpions, do you remember when the Scorpions, when they did the song Wind of Change, and they went and had that groundbreaking concert where they all went to Russia and they played? So it was Scorpions, Motley Crue, all these bands many years ago went, and they got invited to go. So they were with Scorpions on the plane from, they were here because Scorpions were managed by Doc McGee. He also managed Motley Crue. He managed Skid Row, and he managed Bon Jovi all at the same time. And so my friends in my band, that's how I got to meet some of them, is they introduced me to those guys, right? And so they were invited to go on that tour that they went and did that over in Russia. And so two guys from my band, Stepchild, Alex and Kurt, ended up being really good friends with especially the Scorpions, and they went and did that. And they went to Germany and they did shows. And then when they came back here, the Scorpions did a gig at a place called The Palace in Hollywood. And Kurt asked me if I wanted to come and go backstage. And so I went. And he took me in, he walked in, and there's Klaus Meine standing there. And I walk up and I put my hand out and he goes, "Are you a singer?" And I said, "Yeah." And he goes, "I knew you were a singer. You look like a singer." And Kurt goes, "Hey, Klaus, this is Kevin, my singer." And that was the first thing Klaus Meine ever said to me. "Are you a singer?" I said, "Yeah." He goes, "You look like a singer."
Well, he immediately noticed.
Yes. Total sweethearts.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Never met them, unfortunately.
They have a new album coming out, and Mickey D from Motorhead, which is also a friend of mine, is the drummer. I believe the album, it may have even just come out or it's about to come out, but they have Mickey D on drums, which is my brother for many, many years. I should say my friend, but I call my friends in music my brother. So shout out to Mickey D, that's drumming for the Scorpions, and I'm super excited to hear the new Scorpions album. It's gonna freaking kick.
Me too.
I can't wait to hear it. And I hope it blows up. I hope it's the biggest album they've ever had, because they deserve it.
Yeah. So what I've also wondered is that you have several different bands that you're playing in at the same time, right?
Yes.
So how do you do it with time management to coordinate the different bands? Like when you're playing shows, when are you playing with which band, or when you have to do rehearsals or recording? How does the time management work when you're playing in different bands at the same time?
So the band that I have mentioned, that I'm usually like in 3 or 4, most of those bands are not out playing live. Prior to the coronavirus and all that, I was out dabbling and doing more live shows with a couple of different things. And then I haven't done that many shows since the coronavirus hit. And Stepchild is about to record some new music and about to start booking some shows. The gentleman that I have on guitar right now, Mike Moore, which is the guitar player for Stepchild, just had a surgery done, like a carpal tunnel surgery done, and he's healing right now. And he's healing well. And so at some point, probably by November 1st, we will start to rehearse. And while we are starting to rehearse and write and record, we'll be booking shows for 2022. And then like my band Rattleface, we just finished an 11-song album that just got mixed and mastered. And we recorded that during the pandemic, and that's done and that's coming out. And I don't know how much we'll be playing live. Hopefully we'll do some live shows. And there's a band that I did an album with called Distilled Spirit. And the guitar player and the main writer, Dave Johann, has sent me new music. So I guess it would be considered Distilled Spirits, which is what it would be. But I'll probably be, I've been writing material over the music that he has sent me. And it's my hope that Rattleface will come out and do some new shows to promote the new album that's getting ready to come out. And the same thing with Distilled Spirits. I'm hoping that that will turn into a tour or live dates, and the same with Stepchild. So Stepchild will be actively playing live in 2022, and the other band that I'm in right now, we're just recording new music.
With all these bands, are you the main songwriter of all these bands, or are you like, do you write the songs together with another band member of yours?
Well, how it works, and especially even more since the pandemic, but even prior to it, like I've been playing guitar this whole time since I was a kid, right? But a lot of the band that I'm in, like in Stepchild, I do a little bit of guitar work, but for the most part, I'm just up there with the mic and I'm just a front man. And same thing with Rattleface, and same thing with Distilled Spirit. I just am the lead singer in the band, and I don't play guitar, right? And in my solo stuff, and like some of my other things that I do in my solo music career, I've got a guitar around my neck and I'm playing. So to answer your question, as far as the way that we're writing, is that the different people that I work with, and it is nice that I have a recording studio, they will send me songs. So they send me an MP3 file, and I use a software recording studio online called Logic Pro X. And so I drag the MP3 file from an email into track 1 on Logic Pro X, and then I start listening to it. I get the piece of paper out and I start writing it. I get my microphone out. I start doing some, sit right here, right where I'm sitting right now, and I'll like try some vocals and all that. And then I'll put together a scratch track. And once I have it, at least not necessarily written all the way, but like I might have a first verse and like a bridge and a chorus. And then I'll like lay it down, try to make it sound kind of good, you know? And then I'll send it back to them and say, hey, what do you think? And they're like, well, it's cool. I like the melody, but like, I'm not really digging the lyrics that much. Maybe you could go back to the drawing board and write about something else or whatever. You know, that doesn't happen that often. But my point is that we'll bounce back and forth with ideas. And then when I get to the point, and so that whether it's Stepchild, whether it's Rattleface, whether it's Distilled Spirits or any of the other people that I work with, they'll send me a track. I'll write something. I'll do a scratch practice track recording. I'll shoot it back to them. And then if we all agree that it's kicking ass and it's good, then what I'll usually do is I will go ahead and we'll book time at a major studio, at a killer studio, a professional studio, and pay an hourly rate with the best gear and the best microphone and a producer and all that. And we'll go in and we'll actually do the album, the vocals. And one of the great things about in today's recording world is that for the most part, a lot of times we'll go in and we'll do the drums in a studio, and we'll do the lead vocals and the backup vocals in the studio. And then if there's a scratch guitar track or even a scratch bass track, right? They can go in and work guitars, rewrite guitars, re-record guitars. And so you don't have to pay the big money to lay the bass and the guitars. You just want to have killer vocals done in a pro studio, which I can do here if they come out good enough. And if not, I can go into another studio. But we try to do, like, I live in an apartment, so I can't like mic a drum set up here and be slamming drums because I don't think my neighbors would dig it that much, you know? So we do the drums and the vocals in a major studio or a professional studio. And then we're able to do the recording of the guitars and the bass at the different home studios. And we can usually do the mixing and all that and get it all done. And then we usually send it off for mastering to finish the album.
So you're doing the mixing as well yourself? Most
of the mixing we do ourselves.
Nice.
And that's not really me. I'm not the mixing or the engineer guy. I'm pretty not that knowledgeable in it. Now that I've had a studio of my own, I'm actually getting better at it. But some of the people that I work with, like Dave Johann, the guitar player and the engineer producer of and the main songwriter of Distilled Spirits, the guy's killer engineer and a killer producer. Same thing with Ron Sack, the lead guitarist that has his own home studio. So Rattleface is a little bit different because Ron has a completely professional studio. So for the Rattleface album, we don't have to go anywhere. We do it at our own studio that we own.
Yeah. I noticed that a lot of musicians now do a lot of the work themselves. A lot of people I talk to say they record at home or they mix their songs themselves now.
Yes. I mean, more and more, you know, as the years go by and the technology gets by, I mean, the technology gets better and better. The stuff that we're able to do, like I had mentioned to you that I use, most people are either using Pro Tools or Logic Pro, okay? And both of them kick ass. Pro Tools is probably better in some ways, but you got to know how to use it. So you can say, yeah, I got Pro Tools at my studio, but if you don't know how to use it, then it's like, well, whatever, right? Logic Pro is a little more user-friendly in layman's terms for somebody that's a simpleton and not really a pro engineer. It's pretty easy to use and work with. But the Logic Pro, the quality of the recording and what you're able to do in your own living room and your own studio is so killer. And the same thing with Pro Tools. And a lot of the records that are out there in the world were back in the day, you had to have a record deal, you had to go into a killer studio and pay $100 an hour to record. A lot of bands are releasing albums these days that they recorded at their house, in their own studio, in their home studio. Because technology is so much better than it used to be. And you don't have to have a whole studio with hundreds of thousands of dollars of preamps and power conditioners and all the gear that would line up this big, huge studio room like back in the day. The 2-inch tape machines, which I prefer actually to digital. But I have like a pretty, like if you were here at my place and you saw the gear that I have at my studio, it doesn't look like much. But the software that is actually there is everything that you need to do the albums, because the software for delay units and reverb units and equalizers and sound effects, it's all built into it in a box this big, you know? So it's the sky's the limit of what you can do in a studio at your own house now, which is really beautiful for musicians all over the world to use. You know?
Yeah. I think it's also cool because I've noticed that a lot of musicians now are working together, even though they're in completely different countries. That wouldn't have worked before, obviously, but now it does because they can record at home and then send their own files to someone else. Yes. And then can put it together in the end, so it works now. That's actually pretty cool.
I don't know if you guys know, or maybe some of your listeners, but I just got some kind of like heartbreaking news, because there was this website called OHM or OHM. So it's OHM. I think it was ohmstudios.com or ohm.com. And what it was a platform where it had the recording studio, kind of like what I have, Logic Pro, that was part of the software. And then you would go in and you would join into it. And then and it was super inexpensive. So it was even free for the first 12 songs. And it would have a recording studio thing in there, and you could go in and lay your song. And you could go listen to other people's songs. And if you were looking for a guitar player or a bass player or a singer or a drummer or whatever, and you would go on there and search different styles of music, whether it was metal, whether it was rock and roll, whether it was jazz, whether it was whatever, right? And you could say, hey, that guitar player kicks ass. I want to, you know, ask them if he'll play, right? So I could literally take Kevin Jones' song and shoot the guy a message and say, hey, I heard you play guitar, you're a killer. Do you want to maybe lay a track on my song? And then they go and listen to me and go, yeah, dude, I like your voice. So then you open up the thing and you allow them to come into your song, and then they lay the song, they lay the track on it, and then you have all these different people playing. My point is that they just shut the website down. And I'm hoping that there's another website out there that does that. And what OHM was doing is they had musicians from all over the world that were all laying tracks with each other. So with the internet, it didn't matter what, you could be on the other side of the planet and you were all recording together, which is really cool.
Yeah, but why did they shut it down? Do you know that?
I don't know. So I went to do some work. One of I have an older brother named Michael, and he has a son named Kenny. And Kenny lives in the other side of the United States. I rarely get to see him, but he has the music in his blood. And he's a great singer, and he's a great songwriter, and he's a great OHM Studios online, where all these different musicians can all work together. And like you could literally have like 3 drummers try the track, 5 bass players, 10 guitar players, 20 singers. You could take your music and shoot it up to a singer, and he'd write what he or she wanted to write and send it back. And then you could pick like from 20 different singers and go, oh, that's the best one, and have your song. And people were recording and writing together all over the world. And so my brother Michael has a son named Kenny that plays keyboards and sings, and he lives in Oklahoma in the United States, and I'm in California. So we decided we were going to start writing some music together. And I said, there's this thing called Ohm, we could use it, it'll make things really simple. That way he's not sending me MP3s and I'm using Logic Pro and we're going back and forth through emails. This just gives us, you can have all the musicians all in one place. And so I contacted them, they're like, we're really sorry, but we're shutting our site down. So I was like, oh man. And I was kind of surprised to hear that. And they're based in Europe, I believe, Ohm is.
Okay.
And so, I was bummed because it was such a great, platform for musicians. So maybe there's some musicians out there that you guys may know or may hear the show that know of like a different platform that's doing the same thing that Ohm was. And if you hear of anything like that, please let me know.
Yeah, I'm definitely gonna check that out because it sounds like a cool idea, and I don't understand why they shut it down because I believe that probably a lot of musicians love that website. So
if you two implement this and you end up being multi-millionaires from doing this, okay? You
gotta share. Oh, new business idea.
Your 2 futures right here. I just gave you the freaking golden Willy Wonka ticket just now.
Yeah, but it's being recorded, so you have proof that it was your idea.
If nobody has done it, you guys should do it. You'd be amazing at that. And then you could go and listen to things and say, that's a kick-ass band. Let's help them to tour or put these guys together in a band,
Yeah, I really do love that idea. So I'm not sure if we could do that, but it would be cool.
You should check it out. And I think that the site maybe, I don't know if it's there as far as being able to sign up and start a new account, but I don't believe, so when you go to the, and I'll send you after the interview, I'll email you the link to it so you can check it out. So even though I don't think they're taking on new users, or you can go sign up to do it now, like I said, you will be able to maybe go in and look at the platform of what they did and how they did it. And maybe you could start your own home studio thing and work with musicians all over the world.
Yeah, it would be cool. I will definitely let you know if we do.
Stepchild. That Kevin Jones singer from Stepchild told us to do it, and we're going to do it.
Yeah, you're going to have to record your new album with our platform.
And I can buy a new laptop.
Do you already have any plans for that new album? Do you know when it's going to be released? Or you have, like you said, you're probably going to record in November, right? So do you have some other plans for it?
So the Rattleface record comes out January 1st, 2022. That's the release date. And then the Distilled Spirit we're writing right now, and I don't know. The Stepchild, I'm thinking we're going to start doing shows and recording, and the new Stepchild music will probably come out roughly in June. If people out there that don't know who I am and they listen to your show and they want to check it out, they go to Kevin Jones Rocks, KevinJones at YouTube, and all my bands are there. There's about 40 or 50 songs on there, And then Reverb Nation, which is ReverbNation.com/Stepchild, STEPCHILD, the number 6. Some band tried to rip off our name years ago. They suck, by the way. Anyhow, we're the real Stepchild. I'm just kidding, whatever. There's enough for everybody, man. But for the sake of it, we had to put, I don't know why he put 6, you know? I should put like Reverb Nation Stepchild Rocks, but then once I had done it and we were like, we're number 2 on the metal charts in Orange County, California on Reverb Nation. And so if you change it, then you lose the links of all the stuff you've done, you know? And since we were doing so good on the charts, I kept it there. So you can go to reverbnation.com/Stepchild6. You can find Distilled Spirits there. You can go to rattleface.com, RATTLEFACE.com is our website. We've done 5 albums, and it's the 5th one that's just getting ready to come out. And I definitely want to give a second shout out to Christina Avila, my East Coast promoter, for introducing me to both of you and for having me. And what is my Facebook? Facebook.com/singer.kevinjones is on Facebook. And Twitter is Mr. Jones Rocks. And my Instagram account is KEVINJONESZ, like Kevin Jonesy. A lot of my friends, especially musician friends, my nickname's Jonesy. And what else I wanted to share with you, that a guy that was in Stepchild and one of my best friends since I was a teenager, and was my guitar player. And he also engineered and produced my solo album. His name is Dave DeBest. Dave DeBest went to heaven on August 16th. And he was one of my best friends, and he passed away to heaven August 16th, just a few weeks ago. And we have put together a bunch of his best friends to do a celebration of life memorial concert for him. And his girlfriend, Sandy Sherman, asked me to have this event up and organize a bunch of his friends to all play together. So we have a bunch of amazing musicians, from Michael Oliveri from Leatherwolf and Jeff Garrett from Leatherwolf, and just a bunch of amazing musicians are all going to be playing together in concert September 19th, Sunday, September 19th, at a place called the Gaslamp Concert Theater in Long Beach, California. And so we are rehearsing for that, and we're going to be doing that that memorial concert and celebration of life for Dave DeBest on September 19th. And the Gaslamp is a killer venue with a huge stage, and it's a beautiful venue. The people that run it are super kind and sweet people. They got killer bands. LA Guns is playing there in November, and it's a really great venue, and we're really happy to have it at such an amazing place. And so even though it's really sad that my friend Dave is gone and I miss him, I'm really happy that his friends have all come together to honor him. And so we're all excited to do this tribute memorial concert for Dave at the Gaslamp Sunday, September 19th.
That's beautiful that you do that.
Yeah, the flyer is on my page. You might have seen it. And
Yeah, I have.
It's a sad thing, but all we can do is accept that he is in heaven with the good Lord, and he's in a better place. And he was only 56 years old. He produced and engineered a couple of the Leatherwolf albums, I believe. I know he produced the Leatherwolf Live. Have you guys heard of Leatherwolf?
I don't think I have.
Leatherwolf is a huge band years ago, and they were doing all the Castle Donington, all the European metal fest and all that. So I'll send you a link to them.
Awesome, yeah.
Yeah, and if you want to interview Michael Oliveri, their lead singer, he's moved on. I think they might have I think that Leatherwolf kind of went to a new chapter, and so they may have a different singer now. But the real singer of Leatherwolf and the original singer that brought them to the top of the world and toured, Europe and the United States, is Michael Oliveri, my good brother, the lead singer of Leatherwolf. And he's amazing. I'm going to send you a link so you can hear
Yeah.
him.
I would
Yeah,
love
would
to
be
check
cool.
him out.
When I interview him, I can open that door for you once you hear him.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're definitely gonna check it out, and we're also gonna post all of your links that you just mentioned in the description on YouTube, and
I would so appreciate that. Thank you for having me.
yeah, so that everybody can just click on the link because it's easier. Just click on the link. And thanks to you again for talking to us for more than an hour. And also thanks to Christina for setting this up.
I like to talk. Can you tell?
But it's good for an interview if you like to talk. It would be bad if you wouldn't.
I am what I am. I am who I am. I embrace who I am. And I like to talk.
Well, that's good. And we definitely really appreciate it that you talked to us.
Thank you so much for having me. And who knows, maybe we could do this again someday.
Yeah, sure. Would love to.
Let me know. I'm here for you.
Yeah.